I don't really like gacha games like that, but Honkai Star Rail is really, really good. What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Hastags dropping some hot Faraga on this mic. Today we're going to be talking about Honkai Star Rail. Now, one thing I kind of want to do is I want to start talking about games I'm actually playing, and Honkai Star Rail is one of those games that I'm actually playing, or games that I'm actually interested in also. Now, Honkai Star Rail is a game I've been watching from afar. I'll keep up with it, and I kept up with the updates, and then the release happened, and I was like, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give the game a shot. So I did. And I want to say I was actually kind of pulled in from the start. Now, for preface, the last gacha game I got into was actually Genshin Impact. And I dropped the game somewhere, at the beginning of Leeway. Now, this is for a few reasons. And before I start that, I actually need to explain how I play games, or specifically RPGs and open world games. And that's that I like to kind of, complete as much as possible before moving to the next story, I guess, event. So say for instance, I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now, and while I'm only about 20% of the way through the game's actual story, I've put in like 21 hours into the game because I'm doing all of the game's side content. And if that can pull me back in and continuously pull me back in, I really love that. My issue with Genshin Impact is I kept trying to give the game a chance when in reality I didn't like it. And it's not because I think the gameplay is inherently bad. I actually think it's kind of cool when you look at it. But it's just that the overall gameplay loop was not fun. I'm fighting what feels like the same enemies all the time. Characters feel like they have hard caps on how strong they can get until maybe I spend enough money or waste enough time trying to leveling them up, or I spend enough time in the gacha trying to get good enough pools. It was a game that I quickly realized was not for me, especially the more I played it, because at the beginning it actually hooked me. And that's what I'm kind of worried about with Honkai Star Rail. It's hooked me at the beginning. I've only put in about 4 or 5 hours, but I really like the game. While the side content isn't the most amazing side content on the planet, it is enjoyable to sit there and play because the game's combat is really fun. And it's relatively simple also, especially for a turn-based game. On top of that, the units that the game gives you, the free units, are also relatively good, which is surprising for a gacha game. Usually a lot of the times the stuff you get for free is the worst stuff in the game. Not always, which again, Genshin had some stuff that they gave you that was actually really good, or at least really good for a lot of your playthrough. It just got grating once you felt like you started to need to have to spend money, and that's when I dropped the game. But on top of that, I think what Honkai Star Rail is doing for me so far that Genshin, I guess, never could achieve is actually pulling me into the world and the story. Now, I know many people actually like Genshin Impact's lore and story and world. I just don't at all. Genshin Impact has the issue that I guess a lot of these, MMO light, games as a service and stuff out of like places like China have, is that they throw a lot of stuff at you without really explaining it well, because it all sounds and looks cool, but in reality, it makes no sense. Like the first thing you're told in the game is that, you're gonna go to Mondstadt, and that, the current like vessel of Barbados or whatever is there, and his name is like Venti, and on top of that he's the Animo Archon, and you don't know what an Archon is, you don't know what the Animo God is, because they're talking about the Animo God every 10 seconds. Then you have Paimon running around telling you need to do this. Paimon thinks this, Paimon thinks that, because she speaks in the third person. It's all really annoying and nonsensical in a way that I can't hop on. It feels like Honkai Star Rail has kind of, I guess, reeled that in some, and while there's stuff they talk to you about and they tell you about in the world, they actually give you the opportunity to kind of ask what these things mean. And while it can get a little wordy as far as, the storytelling and a little bit long in the tooth, at least I don't feel like I'm being, lost. Whereas with Genshin Impact, I felt like I was just listening to nonsense. And trust me, I've given that game like 2 or 3 chances. I went, out of my way to look up stuff, and I was just like, this just seems so unentertaining that, I just can't. On top of that, this game feels much more like an actual game instead of a mobile game that is at the scale of a AAA game. This feels like maybe like a AA game that has been put on mobile, a solid like $40 game put on mobile, or that's free to play on PC. It just overall, this game is just a lot more refined than what MiHoYo has had in the past. Because the first experience that I and many other people who, have been playing their games for a long time have had with them was actually Honkai Impact 3rd. And that game was over the top, just basically every character is a clone of some other action game character. Like the protagonist is basically just a crappy Bayonetta clone in terms of their moveset. You're sitting there listening to characters. You have another one of those characters that talks in the third person. I don't know why MiHoYo has this affinity for characters like that, but while it wasn't, the worst thing on the planet, especially since the gameplay was fun, the levels were a little bit short, and it felt like, well, it looked good and it had some good concepts as far as its action combat. It didn't have the right scope. It definitely felt like a mobile game at the end of the day. Whereas this feels like a game I can just pick up and play while also investing hours of my time into. And I think that's really good. Like, don't get me wrong, it still has all the marks of a gacha game. You have to go out of your way to find items to level up your characters and items and equipment. Combat levels you up extremely slowly, and the characters you used are determined up to random RNG with mercy pulls and the whole like. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like that is as huge of a focus here as it is, just the polish and what's on display. I think if you, aren't super into the whole gacha system, but you wouldn't mind it, I think Honkai Star Rail is actually a really compelling experience for many people. And I think especially as a mobile game, it is really good. The first hour or so I played on my phone. For reference, I have a Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra 5 Gangster Alpha Omega Supreme and Thanos Purple, so the game wasn't super hard for me to run, but I will say you might want a higher end device if you want to run this game, max settings or even high settings. That doesn't necessarily mean it's unplayable on lower end devices, it's just that you're going to be playing it on lower graphic settings with a lower frame rate. The game also plays pretty well on keyboard and mouse, touch screens, and on controller, which is something I can't necessarily say the same for as far as Genshin, MiHoYo's other live service mobile gacha. I think, again, if you're looking for a high quality mobile game, or just you're a fan of Genshin and want to see what MiHoYo has to offer, or looking for a new live service game to play, I think this is actually the game to hop onto right now. The only other live action game I'm currently playing is Fortnite, so this is, I guess, a nice break of pace, considering it's not multiplayer driven, it is single player driven. But I don't know, tell me how you feel in that comment section down below. This has been your man Hastags. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this out with your friends. Remember, Hot Faraga turns the cold Blizzaga. Chill out with some of my other videos. Make sure to follow your boy on Twitter at MobShadak100 and join the Discord. Links are, as always, are down below. Remember, peace and have a good one.